Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, in conjunction with SD1 Sports to bring you the most complete and comprehensive look at college football 2018 to get you set for the season. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mark Rogers TV. And, of course, leave your comments, your likes, and your dislikes. Let us know what you think. Running down the top 10 quarterbacks for 2018. And before I start my list, keep this in mind. I'm not rating NFL prospects. This is not about the next level. This is about who are the best players right now in college. I'm also not even necessarily looking at the best quarterbacks from 2017 because there is projection that needs to be factored in toward 2018. Also, these aren't necessarily the best throwers of the football. It's a complete position that requires a guy to lead his team, make the right decisions, throw the football, but also run the ball and make plays in the running game if needed. All right, these players won't necessarily have the best stats this season. They're the best players. So think Tom Brady, best quarterback in the NFL, or at least in the top three. He would not have the same stats if he went to the worst offense in the NFL. His stats would suffer. So I'm not rating the offensive line or the playmakers around the player that's going to translate to stats. I'm talking about the top 10 players, according to me, in college football this season. All right. We got no Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, of course, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold. All those guys are gone, along with J.T. Barrett, Mason Rudolph, and Luke Falk. A lot of great quarterbacks gone. Here are the guys that are back. At number 10, I go to the SEC in the first of three SEC quarterbacks in the list, Jarrett Stidham of Auburn. So he came to the Auburn Tigers having played 7 or 8 games with Baylor, and he played well there, but he certainly didn't have to go against the caliber defense that he did in the SEC. So it was a baptism under fire to a certain extent, and Jarrett Stidham played awfully well against Clemson and then again against the SEC. 66.5% completion percentage, extremely high, best in the conference, 18 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He also finished 5th in the nation in completing 50-yard pass plays downfield. I believe Jarrett Stidham will take another step in his growth process in 2018 after a fine 2017 season in which he led the Auburn Tigers to the SEC Western Division Championship. All right, my number 9 quarterback is the quarterback who defeated the Auburn Tigers in the Peach Bowl, McKenzie Milton, Central Florida junior. 2016 pedestrian, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. Then he took off last year, 37 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions. All right. I watched the last 3 games in particular involving Milton. Final regular season game against South Florida in a shootout against Quentin Flowers. He lit it up in a 49-42 UCF win. 373 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. All right, the next week in the American Conference Championship game, he defeated Memphis. His team did 62-55. He threw for 494 yards, 5 touchdowns. He did get picked off 3 times, but he led the big win in scoring 62 points. And then finally, against Auburn, after a horrendous start of the game for him, he completed like 2 of his first 14 passes. He got off the deck. His team kept him in the game, and he finished with a great effort against a really good defense. 116 yards rushing, 242 yards passing, and 2 touchdowns to lead the Knights over Auburn in the upset win 34-27. McKenzie Milton at number 9 on our list. Right, at number 8, we've got a quarterback who was not the starting quarterback for his team at this point last year. He lost the job to Brandon Dawkins out of the gate, but when Dawkins went down in a road game at Colorado, in stepped KHALIL Tate, and Brandon Dawkins had to make his way in the offseason to Bloomington, Indiana to play for the Hoosiers. So we know what happened here. Brandon Dawkins took that starting quarterback job against Colorado, and he not only took the job because he played really well, he set a college football record for rushing for a quarterback with 327 yards. Then he took off from there. Listen to these rushing efforts out of KHALIL Tate. 327 against Colorado, 230, 137, 146, 161, 206. All games in the Pac-12 against quality, for the most part, quality defenses. What's interesting to note is that against Oregon, Arizona State, and Purdue to conclude the season, Tate ran for 32, 28, and 58 yards. So have defensive coordinators unlock the key in containing KHALIL Tate? We shall see coming up in 2018. That said, he can throw the ball too. He's not a polished passer, but he has an extremely strong arm, and he's pretty accurate. He completed 62% of his passes and finished up with his best passing effort of the season against Purdue with 302 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air. Number 8 quarterback for 2018 is KHALIL Tate. Our 7th-rated quarterback is one who led the nation in touchdown passes. He is Drew Lock of Mizzou, and he led the Tigers to 7 surprising wins in 2017. 3,964 yards passing, 44 touchdowns, 13 interceptions for a guy who could have left legitimately for the NFL. Scouts were ready to take him in a first or second round situation, but obviously the draft class was loaded and Lock stayed at Mizzou. Now, let's understand that throwing 44 touchdown passes was also against the likes of Mizzou State, 7 touchdowns there, and 6 against Idaho, 5 against UConn. But he also had really good games against Florida, 15 of 20, 3 touchdown passes there, and against the Georgia Bulldogs, in which he threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. 57% completion percentage, that needs to go up. The NFL feedback is that Locke is working in a very simplistic offense, but Derek Dooley, the new offensive coordinator in Columbia, may change all that and prepare one Drew Lock for the NFL. All right, our number 6 quarterback, Tagavailoa from the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I got to admit, if it wasn't for that last pass of the season, Tua would most likely not be on this top 10 list. But consider the pass. It didn't just win a national championship, but take into consideration the circumstances. Georgia's up by 3 in overtime. Alabama's got the ball. He gets thrown back for a sack, loses 8 yards. It's 2nd and 18. Any reasonable veteran quarterback would have dumped the ball down most likely on 2nd down to try to set up a reasonable 3rd and medium range completion, and if they didn't convert, get them back into field goal range to extend the game and get to another overtime. But Tua went for it and threw that infamous touchdown pass to Devonta Smith to win it. All right, this kid, as a side note, it was just reported by 247 Sports that he has massive hands. This came up at the All-America Bowl just out of high school. Brett Favre, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees are guys that have had their hands measured at a ridiculously enormous size, and Tua's ranks right there with them. And Kirk Herbstreit made the comment after learning of this that the size of the quarterback's hands may actually factor more into the accuracy than anything else. Regardless, Tua looks the part. He was a 5-star that came into the game when his team needed him most in the most important game of the season, down 13 to Georgia, and brought him back for the win. That wasn't Tua's only time under center. He threw for 77 pass attempts, so he did get some playing time, 11 touchdowns and 2 picks. Tua Tagovailoa is the 6th best quarterback in college football for 2018. All right, at number 5, I've got a quarterback who stepped onto the field 2 seasons ago, actually, first and foremost, in a bowl game when Christian Hackenberg went down, and then he became the starting quarterback and took it from there in 2016 and 17. He is Trace McSorley, now a senior at Penn State. With James Franklin in play at the head coaching position on the sidelines and Trace McSorley at quarterback, that is a combo that is going to take Penn State, again, to a top 10 finish, you would think, in college football. Over the last 2 years, McSorley has thrown 57 touchdown passes and 17 interceptions. He increased his completion percentage in that Rose Bowl season from 58% to last year's effort of almost 67%. He was less deadly downfield as he lost one of his big playmakers in Chris Godwin and had actually 60 more completions last year, but threw for 44 less yards. So more underneath stuff. And he loses some playmakers again this season in Saquon Barkley, of course, Mike Gesicki, his all-everything tight end, and also Deshaun Hamilton. All right. This is not your prototype NFL quarterback. But again, I'm not rating NFL candidacy. I am rating playmakers in college. And Trace McSorley is one of the very best. I have him as the 5th best quarterback in college football out of Penn State. At number 4, I've got a new guy to the Big Ten, courtesy the SEC and Ole Miss. He is SHEA Patterson of Michigan. He increased his completion percentage, talking about McSorley, now SHEA Patterson, from 54 to 64% last year, 23 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in his career. Watching this guy play is like watching Russell Wilson. He wants to throw it downfield. He wants to make the read and the throw, but if he has to, he can elude defenses and even quick defensive ends like few in college football. And think way back, Russell Wilson reminds us of Fran Tarkenton. Those are the quarterbacks that come to mind in watching this guy, SHEA Patterson, play. Check out our videos with Jerry DiNardo of the Big Ten Network and Steve Dace of Michigan Podcast. They really break down SHEA Patterson's play, and it's good stuff. And not just Patterson's play at Ole Miss, but what Jim Harbaugh and company are going to do to set up an offense that is going to prepare SHEA Patterson for his best play possible and make Michigan's offense much better than what it's been in the past. SHEA Patterson, the 4th best quarterback in college football in 2018. All right, at number 3, I go to a place in the Big 12 that, because of this fact, a lot of people like West Virginia to win that conference championship. They have an experienced top-flight quarterback back in Will Grier. And for you Florida Gators, sorry, Will Grier is this high on the list. 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and it was just a few years ago that he led Florida to a 5-0 start, and who knows what might have been. Maybe Jim McElwain, still the head coach at Florida, if Will Grier would not have been tested positive for PEDs and had to make the transition to West Virginia. Well, he throws like a gunslinger, but he basically takes care of the football pretty well as well. Against the best defenses in the Big 12 and overall that he faced last season, he came up pretty big. Against Virginia Tech, 371 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. Against TCU, 366 through the air, 3 touchdowns. And against Texas, he went 6 for 8 before he got hurt in that game against the Longhorns. I like Will Grier. He is the 3rd best quarterback in 2018. Our final 2 quarterbacks on our top 10 list for 2018 hail from what is most likely the worst conference in the Power 5, but these are the 2 best quarterbacks. Number 2 is Justin Herbert from Oregon. All right. This guy has just about everything you would want in a quarterback. In looking at the NFL scouting reports, he has the touch, the timing, the anticipation, the accuracy. He can make all the throws. And no, I am not rating NFL prospects, but that is already translated to his play in college and going 6-1 as a starter last season with 17 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Also keep in mind that that should set him up, if he can stay healthy, for a nice 2018. He really has had no bad games in 15 starts in college. 2 seasons ago, he lit up Arizona State for 489 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he had 3 touchdown games in 2017 in only 7 games played against the likes of Nebraska, Arizona State, and Oregon State. Number 2 quarterback in all of college football belongs to the Oregon Ducks. He is Justin Herbert. And finally, our number 1 quarterback in college football, he is not the most talented, but he is the best when it comes to running the offense, making the throws, and winning games. He is Jake Browning of Washington, and coming into his senior season, thrown into the fire right out of the gate as a freshman in Game 1 at Boise State. It was kind of ugly, but he gained great experience in that game and has taken it through ever since. As a sophomore, he, of course, led Washington to the college football playoff. He threw 43 touchdowns. Only 19 last season. He lost one of his best playmakers in John Ross, but against just 5 interceptions and a 68.5 completion percentage in a school that has produced great quarterbacks through the years, he may turn out to be the very best at the University of Washington, Jake Browning, who says he's on a mission to win a national championship for the Huskies this season. That's our top 10 list of best quarterbacks in college football for 2018. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at MarkRogersTV.